Welcome to feeling healthier and happier by healing the root causes of illness, which are usually your emotions, childhood trauma, your gut, your diet, your liver, burnout, and even generational trauma from your ancestors. I'm your host, Dr. Ameet Aggarwal, naturopathic doctor, Gestalt trauma psychotherapist, and family constellations therapist. After this show, you're also invited to join my emotional healing retreats around the world and get your free ebooks and courses on holistic medicine, trauma healing, family constellations therapy, and homeopathy at drameet.com. That's drameet.com. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show. Thanks, Brielle. I'm really excited to dive deep into family traumas and how abortions, miscarriages, victims of war, all these things affect our state of mind. And also some homeopathic remedies we'll go through to heal trauma, which will make your therapy sessions go much more smoothly. So let's just dive right into it.
Yes, let's dive in. I'm so excited to learn a little bit more about that today and speak with you about that. So to just get us started, could you tell us about why people get anxiety, depression, insomnia, and other mental health issues after PTSD?
Yeah, Brielle. So at the retreats I run, I find that most people with anxiety, depression, or even physical issues have some sort of trauma in their lives. What happens is when you experience trauma, you go into a fight, flight, or freeze response. That means your nervous system and adrenal glands, they get overworked or they go into a freeze response. But even in the freeze response, they're working really hard to protect you from danger, to help you survive. And unfortunately, when you don't heal the trauma, when you don't resolve the trauma or get over it fully, your body, your nervous system is stuck into fight, flight, or freeze response. And this then exhausts your nervous system as well as your adrenal glands. And when that happens, you go into what we call a cortisol imbalance because your adrenal glands produce cortisol and adrenaline. So these hormones or neurotransmitters go out of balance. And when they go out of balance, then that affects your serotonin, dopamine, GABA, and melatonin, your feel-good neurotransmitters. And when these feel-good neurotransmitters start dropping, then you go into anxiety, depression, insomnia, OCD, suicidal thoughts. So many people are on medications or even supplements to try and manage their mood, whether it's anxiety, depression, etc., without dealing with the trauma. So at the retreats we do in Sardinia and in Kenya, we look at childhood trauma, adulthood trauma, as well as ancestral trauma, which we'll be talking about today, how miscarriages, abortions, love affairs of our parents, of our grandparents were victims of war, or if there were suicides in the family, how all this also we are carrying on behalf of the ancestors.
hmm Yeah, really interesting. Thank you for giving us some background there of what that kind of looks like inside our bodies and why we might be having and experiencing some of those issues. So, I would love to dive in deeper about that ancestral trauma and PTSD. I know you talk a lot about that in your work and you use family constellations therapy to work with that. So, could you tell us about why we are affected by family trauma and what is family constellations therapy for anyone who is unaware?
So family constellations therapy is my favorite therapy. In fact, I do that mostly at the retreats where each person gets an individual constellation. And I teach about it a lot as well. So how does it go? Family constellations therapy, developed by Bert Hellinger, is a form of therapy that recognizes imbalances in the family system. Yeah, there are certain rules that we need to obey in family systems. One is that everyone needs to be included. So what does that mean? Often in families, there are certain people or emotions that we exclude. So maybe the sadness of our mom or grandparents, maybe a miscarried or aborted child. So if there's a miscarriage or abortion in the family, and you think, and that abortion or miscarriage is ignored, and you think you're the first child, you will have a lot of anxiety and stress in your life trying to fulfill the first position. Because even though the child didn't survive, that child belongs in the first position if they came before you. Yeah. Or in the third position if they came after you, whatever. But when they're not recognized, then you will assume you have to fulfill the first position role. And until you recognize that this child comes before you and that you're in the second position, you will always have some form of anxiety or depression. And often when there's a death in the family, our parents get depressed or sad. And as children, we carry this pain for our parents, on behalf of our parents. And this pain is not ours to carry. Yeah. So in family constellations, an order of love is the order of hierarchy. So we respect the hierarchy of our parents. They come first, and we're not supposed to carry their pain for them. And so often people will have depression, anxiety, OCD as well, suicidal thoughts that are not theirs. It belongs to one of their parents or ancestors who maybe suffered from suicide or a loss of a loved one or some form of trauma themselves. But unknowingly, we carry this on behalf of the ancestors. And epigenetics proves this. Epigenetics is a science that shows that trauma is passed down from generation to generation. And at the retreats I do with Family Constellations Therapy, we use healing sentences to release this trauma. Another example is I had a client with cancer, and the cancer started after she found out her father had an affair. And when she found that out, she was super surprised and she couldn't digest it. So she had stomach cancer because she couldn't like digest that information.
Mm-hmm.
She also rejected the father and protected the mother. So in a way, she's protecting the mother as if she's the mother of the mother. She's taking on a role that is not for a child to take on. And then she rejected the father, which creates an internal conflict because the father was also her source of life. Yeah. And so what we did was brought that to awareness and got her to say healing sentences towards her mother. And so the mother doesn't have to be there. At the retreats, we do this with representatives. So I got her to say to her mother, your sadness is great. And forgive me if I see your sadness as yours. And I also have my sadness to look at. Forgive me if I look at my father once again with love or concern. Then I got her to look at her father and say, Dear Dad, what you did was surprising. It shocked me. Forgive me if I couldn't look at you for so long, and it's costing me my life to reject you. Yeah. That awareness of that it's costing her life to reject her father. I'm not saying affairs are good to accept or anything, but just recognizing the dynamics we go into out of loyalty to the mother and out of ideas of, just harshness towards a father who gave us life. So she said these healing sentences, and I have a lot of other healing sentences in my courses, family constellation course that you can practice. But she said these healing sentences, and within 6 months, the tumor markers dropped from 4,000 to below 1,000. Okay. I have many cases at the retreats where shoulder pain disappears when we acknowledge an abortion and we hold the aborted child in our hands, like a representative for the aborted child. Yeah. Or shoulder pain goes away when we recognize the grief of a mother is not ours to carry. Or, I have a lot of survivors, I guess, or victims of the Holocaust. And they are carrying a lot of guilt and trauma and emotions that are not theirs, but of their ancestors who suffered the gas chambers or a lot of torture. So they have a fear of narrow spaces, they have claustrophobia, or they even have guilt about eating. Yeah, survivor's guilt. And so we look at ancestral trauma when we're healing symptoms. So most people are focusing on childhood trauma, whether it's abuse, etc. Those are important to look at as well, and we do that at the retreats. But most people ignore the power of ancestral trauma. And so my passion is to teach or educate people on the power of ancestral trauma and the healing sentences people can do to disentangle themselves from ancestral trauma, because ancestral trauma is the root cause. You can do therapy till the cows come home, but if you don't treat the root cause, you're going to be in a vicious cycle of anxiety, depression, insomnia, OCD, and other chronic diseases.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see how that would be something that a lot of people overlook or don't even think could be an issue in their lives. So I was wondering, how could someone tell that a problem they are experiencing is due to ancestral trauma? What if they don't know much about their ancestors? Is there a way to unlock that, or do you have any thoughts about that?
Yes, I love that question because many people ask me that same question. So at the retreats I do, there are representatives. We have people who represent family members, and I observe the representatives. So I'll get somebody to represent your father, your mother, your grandparents, and we'll observe and see how they're behaving. Yeah. And based on their dynamics, we can tell if there's an imbalance in the family, if there's a death in the family or a victim of war, if there's been abuse going on. Some of these show up. I also encourage my clients before they come to the retreat, I send them a questionnaire where they can investigate this. They ask their parents about some of the family history. There's specific questions that they can go through to get more clarity about their lives. And that's a beautiful questionnaire to go through because going through the questionnaire itself is a healing experience, many people say, because they see, gosh, okay, this happened in my family system. I see that these people were excluded, or there are more siblings in my life, or my mother had a lover before my father, and my father is really second place. And by acknowledging the first lover, I feel more complete in my heart because that love also belongs to my mother. Yeah. But we can honor this first love without betraying my father. There's ways to do that so that you honor everyone in the system. So you feel more complete, more in integrity,
Mm-hmm.
and more powerful. And that helps reduce anxiety, depression, and even sabotaging relationships. Like I've had people go into healthier relationships just by healing the dynamics in the family.
Yeah, I could definitely see how healing with family constellations would also help you move into your future, creating healthier relationships in your life because you are acknowledging all the parts of that. So, thank you for clarifying that a little further because I was wondering about that. And so then you mentioned earlier about how you could share some homeopathic remedies with us. I would love if you could share some remedies that would help with anxiety, depression, and trauma, as well as just why it's so important to combine homeopathy for PTSD treatment.
Lovely. So I'm going to go through about 5 different remedies. The rest of the remedies are in my online course. You can find them and the detailed descriptions of each remedy, okay? First of all, homeopathy is an energetic form of medicine. What does that mean? It's created by diluting substances multiple times so that we're using the frequency of a substance. And why is that important? Because emotions are frequency. And when we're traumatized, our frequency changes. So the best remedy to use is either psychotherapy, talk therapy to release the emotions, or a medicine that works at a frequency level. Yeah, because frequency heals frequency. And so homeopathy has the power to do that. It stimulates your own innate healing ability. And why I love using homeopathy and why it works so well is because we look at the unique symptoms of a person before giving the remedy. So if you have been traumatized, for example, I had a client who has epilepsy, yeah, with depression and insomnia. And the epilepsy started after she lost her sister in a car accident and she couldn't save her sister's life. And there's a homeopathic remedy that it's opium, homeopathic opium, that is excellent for ailments from the fright of seeing an accident, one, from losing a loved one, two, which both happened to her. And opium is also used for tremors that happen when you're going to sleep. So convulsions that start when you're falling asleep. So all those 3 symptoms matched her picture. And so when you give a remedy that matches the entire picture, the remedy works much deeper. Yeah. And so within 3 weeks, her seizures reduced significantly. In fact, the first day when she said some healing sentences using constellation therapy, her seizures reduced by 50% that night. Okay. Why is this important? Because in therapy itself, we go sentence by sentence or experience by experience. So it takes a long time to go through a full catharsis. Yeah. I don't recommend doing CBT because CBT doesn't help you release the trauma. Yeah. It's quite controlling of the mind, but doesn't help you embody the vulnerability, the pain, everything you need to really experience and let go of. Yeah. So I prefer Gestalt therapy, somatic experiencing, and EMDR, which we do at the retreats. So that being said, there's different homeopathic remedies for different kinds of trauma, and each of those remedies have a unique collection of symptoms. For example, what does that mean? Let's say somebody goes through a breakup. Yeah. Um, 2 main remedies for breakups are Natrum muriaticum and Ignatia amara. How do you know which one to choose? Well, Ignatia amara is good for someone who is experiencing a lump in their throat, a lot of anxiety, a lot of crying, tearfulness, yeah, and a sense of unease. So this more anxious picture, yeah. So rather than an antidepressant or an anti-anxiety pill, we look at Ignatia amara, which creates a more complete cure because it fits that symptom picture versus somebody else who goes through a breakup, um, who experiences withdrawal, depression, feels sad easily with music, cries a lot, doesn't trust people anymore. You can see the symptom picture is different. So I'll look at a remedy like Natrum muriaticum, which is for that particular symptom picture of depression, withdrawal, resentment, mistrust, and also somebody who suffered a loss of a loved one, right? And when you use a remedy that encompasses the whole picture, the person gets cured much faster. Yeah, because it's a more complete cure and we're using specific remedies for specific symptoms. Aurum metallicum is another beautiful remedy I love using, which is excellent for somebody who suffered loss in their life, either financial loss or losing a loved one, but blames themselves a lot. They feel a lot of regret, maybe suicidal thoughts, and they feel like guilty and like they've fallen from a high place into a low place. Yeah. And I've used Aurum metallicum for a lot of people who have suffered a lot of burnout, depression, and suicidal thoughts as well, and who are high achievers and have failed somewhat in life and feel very bad about their failure. So you can see why homeopathy is so powerful, because rather than only therapy once a week, when you're taking the homeopathic pills, it guides you through the whole week, every day, basically, in creating and stimulating deeper and deeper cure for your nervous system. Okay. Pulsatilla is also an excellent remedy for traumas where you maybe have lost a loved one or you've gone through some sort of loss or fear, and you feel very needy and you're crying a lot, but you feel better by crying. You feel better in open air, but you feel like you need comfort of others. You're clingy or you need attention. So I look at the entire picture, and then based on that entire picture, and I cover this in the online course, more pictures and more details of each remedy, of course. When you look at the entire picture, then it's easier to see, okay, which remedy could work really well for you. And then, of course, work with a homeopathic doctor to find the best remedy. But the course really teaches you or informs you how to select different remedies and then be more informed when you see a homeopathic or a naturopathic doctor. I promised you 5 different remedies. Let's pick another one. Phosphoric acid, one of my favorite as well. Great for burnout. Somebody who's gone through a lot of stress, their nervous system is weak, exhausted, so their cortisol levels are all over the place. They might be getting insomnia, they might be sensitive to noise, they might have poor erections or low sexual drive as well. And they're just on edge. Yeah, they're completely wiped out. You can see that picture, raw nerves, yeah, really finished. And so in addition to adrenal supplements and of course healing the trauma with Gestalt and family constellations therapy, I might give them phosphoric acid as well. And that resets the nervous system. And the adrenal herbs that I talk about in the online course help also rebuild the adrenal system, yeah, and the whole nervous system. They're called adaptogenic herbs. Those herbs could be things like ashwagandha, rhodiola, and a lot of other herbs that we cover in the course. Yeah, so this whole combined approach, I teach them either in the course or in the live retreats we do. The retreats, of course, have more constellation therapy because most people want to heal these deep-rooted issues. So I try and give everyone a chance to have an individual session if possible.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you so much for sharing about some of those remedies with us. And I think it's really important that you mentioned that you pair these remedies with something like talk therapy or something of that nature, because I could see a lot of people wanting to just kind of bypass that side of things. So I think it's great how you pair the two, especially such as at your retreats, you are pairing that with family constellations. And I was just wondering, is there a way to use these remedies wrong in a way that could negatively affect our mind and or body? Is there anything we should be careful of?
Yes. So when it comes to suicide, of course, suicidal thoughts, of course, seek medical advice and emergency services immediately. Yeah. Don't rely only on the medicines. It's not right. Sometimes not knowing the root cause. That's why you need to work with a homeopath or a naturopathic doctor to understand what's the root cause. I had a client with suicidal thoughts, and the suicidal thoughts went away when she removed gluten from her diet. So using a homeopathic remedy alone wasn't enough. So it's a mistake people can do, right? Or if you get migraines and depression, it could be liver stagnation. I talk about the importance of liver detox and how the liver controls progesterone and estrogen and all your hormones in the online course. And if you're only focusing on using remedies to heal headaches and the depression or whatever it is you have, but not saying, okay, some of your stuff, some of your symptoms is coming from toxicity, liver stagnation, and chronic inflammation from a poor diet, then you're really wasting your time. Yeah, you're suppressing symptoms or playing around with medicines in an inappropriate way and playing with your life. So I would highly suggest, of course, using professional advice, coming to the retreats, doing the online course to be more educated on the whole system, the body and the mind. So understanding how your gut, liver, and adrenal glands and trauma all play a role together and how to heal each system, yeah, individually, so you're more complete and ready for further healing with any other remedies you choose to go or any other therapist you choose to go with.
Yeah, thank you so much for clarifying that and emphasizing the importance of that education for the remedies as well as our bodies and just the process that we might be going through. And so, what about if we are experiencing intense feelings of anger or sadness that we are suppressing? Is there anything we can do to kind of take a look at those feelings within us, even if we have suppressed them quite far down?
Yes, absolutely. So at the retreats, I encourage people to either beat a pillow or a mattress, or we look at the vulnerability that is hiding underneath the anger. Yeah, so the anger is a protection. Yeah, it's safety. And because after you express anger, there's often sadness underneath. It's like, how did that person betray me? Or I wasn't ready for that trauma. It was too quick for me. It was too surprising for me. Yeah, so underneath most anger is this desire to survive, yeah, and to be okay. And so I'll work very carefully with these people and allow them to really express or to feel the anger and also the vulnerability behind it, the need to survive. Yeah, that's really important. And sometimes screaming, shouting, growling helps our nervous system, our somatic system, basically feel like we're doing something about defending ourselves. Because anger is, well, aggression is healthy. Yeah, violence, of course, we don't condone violence at any of the retreats, but expressing some form of anger to defend yourself gives your body a feeling, okay, I protected myself. Now I can trust that there'll be more safety for me. When that trust comes, then the nervous system settles down. It comes out of that fight, flight, or freeze response. Yeah. Because that anger, if you're stuck in anger, you're stuck in a fight, flight, or freeze response. And you're not looking at the internal trauma that's happened for you. Yeah.
Mhm.
Or using family constellations therapy, your anger might be towards your mother for having a lover. Yeah. And your father was left alone, or vice versa. Or it could be there's an abortion in your family and you're not aware of it, and you're angry because your mom had an abortion and it was your sibling who died, but you don't know that this anger is related to that abortion. Yeah. So there's different scenarios that can also create this unknown sources of anger. And at the retreats, we look at these um, constellations that reveal, okay, what can you do to heal this pain? And therefore, automatically, then the anger starts to subside, and your nervous system just feels healthier overall, and you're able to make better connections, more intimate connections with people in your life again. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful experience.
Yeah, it sounds like such a beautiful experience and so helpful to be able to find a way to access some of those feelings of anger, even if we are unsure at the moment what they might be related to. And
Absolutely.
yeah, so why do you think it's so important to heal the mind and body together?
Mm. So the body affects the mind, and the mind affects the body. So you have a gut, liver, adrenal glands. If you're eating inflammatory foods and a poor diet, and you've destroyed your gut with too many medicines, birth control pill, etc., you get what we call leaky gut. I talk about this in the course as well. There's some free videos on my website on this. Leaky gut then causes chronic inflammation, which then causes asthma, eczema, arthritis, and it disrupts our neurotransmitters, leading to anxiety and depression. Also, the inflammation goes to the liver, and the liver is already stressed with alcohol, toxins, drugs, pesticides, etc. And the liver is the master controller of hormones, detoxification, blood sugar regulation, digestion, etc. So when the liver becomes stagnant or unhealthy, hormones suffer, which leads to PMS symptoms, breast tenderness, anxiety and depression, and insomnia. When the liver is stagnant, we get more heartburn, IBS symptoms because the bile is important for healing the gut and keeping the microbiome healthy. And all this inflammation then stresses the adrenal glands, which are already stressed with life stresses and trauma. So inflammation and trauma burns out your adrenal glands, and that causes a cortisol imbalance, which suppresses your neurotransmitters, serotonin, dopamine, GABA, melatonin, and that causes more anxiety and depression. So you can see how healing the biology, your gut, your liver, and your adrenal glands is super important for mental and physical health. And also healing trauma is super important because trauma stresses your vagus nerve, and it causes which affects your gut, your liver, and your adrenal glands. Trauma and stress also stress out your adrenal glands, leading to burnout and a cortisol imbalance and a hormonal imbalance. Okay. If I'm losing you, anyone in the crowd, then just watch the free videos. It'll explain it much more clearly. Then trauma also causes a mitochondrial dysfunction in the body. Yeah. When our mitochondria shut down, then we get more oxidative damage and DNA damage. And so then we get more cellular dysfunction and more diseases. Yeah. So trauma is directly related. And you saw the case of the cancer patient where the cancer resolved by healing the trauma between her and her father and mother. Yeah. Trauma is directly connected to chronic disease. So it's important to heal the trauma as well as healing the gut, the liver, and the adrenal glands together. And this is all covered in the online course.
Lovely. Yes. What a beautiful explanation. And I can totally see how important the ties are there between our trauma and our body and our mind, and how really working with both of those is so key. And let's talk a little bit about how people can dive deeper with you. I know you have some free resources such as your free ebook and videos on your website that you briefly mentioned today. And I would love if you could tell us a little bit about those resources.
There's free videos on gut healing, liver detox, adrenal support, emotional healing exercises. And there's a lot of master classes as well, free master classes on family constellations therapy and how to combine homeopathy and family constellations therapy and trauma healing. And of course, gut healing herbs, etc. Then there's a full online course that goes through my detailed protocols. And there's also a full online course on family constellations therapy with healing sentences. The main online course also covers emotional healing exercises with liver detox herbs, adrenal herbs, and gut healing herbs. Then I'd love you to come to the retreats, either in Sardinia, in Europe somewhere, or in Africa, where we combine safaris and emotional healing. That's a very powerful experience. So all that is on my website.
Thank you so much for offering and creating those amazing resources. And as a reminder to everyone watching or listening, you can click the button below to head over to Dr. Ameet's website and check out all of that awesome stuff. And then, are there any final insights you'd like to share before we wrap up, Dr. Ameet?
So I'm just channeling. Family constellations therapy is a new therapy in the world, old but new in terms of gaining awareness. It sounds very woo-woo, but it's one of the most powerful therapies I've come across in healing ancestral trauma and family entanglements that we are stuck in out of loyalty and love to our family members. So I wouldn't ignore this therapy if you are on a healing journey, looking to really heal the root cause of anxiety, depression, cancer, chronic diseases, and any other sufferings you may be going through. So come to the retreats, really experience it, because at the retreats, we go through the constellation therapy and also educate you on the different entanglements that are there in front of you so that you're aware of what possible entanglements you might have as well by watching other people go through their constellations. Thanks for learning how to heal the root cause. Make sure to also get your free ebook and courses I've created for you on naturopathic medicine, trauma healing, family constellations therapy, and homeopathy at drameet.com. That's drameet.com. Thanks and lots of love.